Welcome to Better Conversations with me, Sehaam Cyrene, giving you the words and the confidence for better conversations in leadership. That's what I do in each episode. I explore strategies and I love sharing questions and phrases for you to play around with and make your own. This recording happens live at Better Conversations on YouTube, so you might like to chat with me there and drop me a conversation challenge. Today, I've got quite a tricky topic. I think it's happening for people and organisations throughout the year, but in our current climate, it's something that many leaders may be facing, and that is delivering bad news to people that they've worked with and whose company they've enjoyed, who they've collaborated with over years, even months. It could be weeks. The bad news could be just in terms of performance, or it could be a loss of a role or redundancy of a role. It poses a lot of anxiety for everyone involved. There are a lot of really tough feelings in all of this. Feelings of guilt, feelings of shame, sometimes feelings of responsibility. Our empathy is really being called on as we're having to deliver something that's quite a tough discussion of one kind or another, whether it's about a shift that's needed or something that's actually quite life-changing for the other individual. So as leaders, this can be a really, really tough space and creates quite a bit of anxiety and take its toll in its own way. So I wanted to talk about this and give you some guidance about having those conversations. It's important to recognize, I know it's a space that we want to have happen quickly and get it over with and move past it. But in doing so, we might actually be creating wounds that take a lot longer to heal as a result. It's important to acknowledge the feelings that we have in this space and find a way to be okay with it. And one of the key things is understanding what your personal values are, figuring out how does this conversation look for you. If you're really honoring one of your values or all of your values, how are you showing up? What is that going to look like? Essentially, how are you going to sleep at night and not have or minimize feelings of regret or responsibility or whatever those difficult feelings might be? How are you going to minimize those as you look back on this time in your career or in the journey of your organization? If we show up because we don't know how to manage our own feelings about this difficult conversation we're having, it can mean that we actually deliver it in a way that is far removed from what we're really about. And then we have to live with that. So the important thing here is to appreciate what your values are and have a reflect on what does that look like for you. If you're really honoring those values, and equally, what does compromising on those? So, if fairness is one of your values, then what does that really look like and think about it not just in terms of yourself, but the other individual, but maybe a broader group of stakeholders. What is that about? So that you can get clear in your mind, what does being fair look like to you in this next while through the conversation, maybe a series of conversations. What does that look like? It's when we compromise them that we find ourselves in a very uncomfortable place. The other important part of this is getting HR counsel early. Involve your HR team. Know what the process is from a fairness standpoint and an integrity standpoint. Contracts are great when things go wrong. You don't really need them. You don't really look at your policies, perhaps, when everything's going great, but you do. And they're there for a really important reason. They create clarity, fairness, make sure that we're following the right process for all parties involved. So do get your HR team involved early in a difficult conversation. Just even their awareness, even if it's not a major event that is about to happen, knowing that they have awareness of it, they can guide you. They can certainly inform you as to things to be mindful of and careful with. So that's HR. The next thing is prepare what it is that you want to say. For some people, that's having a script. I would say you definitely want to have your key messages clear, but take the time to prepare what it is that this conversation needs to look like. Get clear about what does the best possible outcome in this conversation look like, and then what can you do to ensure that that is even possible? What can you do in the conversation? How can you settle the other individual? How can you settle yourself before the conversation? If it's doing a rehearsal with yourself, do that. Or if you've got someone that you can do that with, take advantage of the opportunity to just play out. Many of us are verbal processors, so we need to actually hear what that looks and sounds like, so that we know for certain that that's the right thing to do or say. And include things like, how do you want to set up the conversation? How do you want to make someone feel comfortable and at ease? Is there something that they need to know beforehand so that they can prepare? So really important to think about what it is that you want to say, but also how that might look and feel for all parties involved. So the next thing that we want to be clear about is sticking to the facts, because this is a space where tension is going to run high. There's going to be a lot of emotional triggers. We're all not our best selves when we're emotionally triggered. So allowing for that and expecting that there may be a response that takes us by surprise, or it's a response that we may anticipate and go, I really don't want to deal with that, or I am worried about how they might react or respond to it. You have to know, take that as a given that is going to happen. And so having your key messages or key facts ready, written down, and stick to it during your conversation will help anchor you, will give you a sense of, okay, I appreciate tensions are running high, emotions are running high here. So how can I avoid this escalating or losing or it going into a space that I'm not ready, isn't relevant, doesn't change the status, doesn't change the decision. You don't want to get caught up in something that actually is more inflaming of the situation and isn't relevant, isn't helpful. So sticking to the facts and appreciating that the risk of derailment is high, and that's why it's important to have those in place for yourself. And writing it down, I really recommend writing that down. Okay, so when our emotions are running really high, we are prone to judging, and we do that for lots of different reasons: to protect ourselves, as a defense mechanism. Let's say we're giving bad news to somebody and they react really quite strongly. Emotionally, they are very upset, distraught. Our self-protection can mean that we enter into really easy to enter into a sort of judging space. Be aware of that, think about that, and that's the whole point of preparing, think about what that might be for you, and think about what response you would like to do instead. And that may be just holding space, that may be just letting that person say what it is they need to say, and not reacting, not responding to it, not discounting them, not saying that's not correct. It may just be allowing them that space to vent, to express, it needs to be a safe space for them to share this news that may be a surprise to them, We may have been sitting with it for a while and stewing over how best to deliver it. To them, it may be a surprise. It might not be a surprise. Either way, I think if you think about any situation where we've received bad news, even though it might have been a possibility that was on our radar, when it's actually delivered, that's a tough place to be. That can be really quite jarring and scary. So that's really important then that we don't hold that judgmental stance, that we actually create a safe space and we make it okay for them to express whatever you need to express in this moment is what's the right thing for you. Do bear that in mind. Okay, what's next? Talked to this a little bit already, just making room for those strong emotions. We have to expect them. It's okay. It's natural. Your news might be life-changing for someone, it might be devastating, outside of your control, but it might be a business need where you are having to reduce numbers in order to sustain the business, for the survival of the business. It's a natural reaction to have, because we all have lives. We've got families, we've got hopes and dreams, we've got things that we were hoping we'd be able to achieve and do. A role, a profession, a career trajectory. So, in that conversation, we may actually have just shattered someone's view of what the next few months looks like. So give them that room. Our tendency is to want to fill that space because it's awkward or uncomfortable, or to put a counter position or put our point of view. Yes, but, this is the decision. I ask you to hold that back. Just allow for some quiet space for them to let that news sink in and settle in, and you being there and holding that space for them as that information lands and sinks in shows your compassion. It shows that, this is tough information to deliver, and I'm not going to rush you through this process. I'm not going to seek to soothe myself first before your needs, because this is something that's affecting you. So I'm going to just be here with you in this moment, and these feelings, we're both here together in this space. We need a few moments to let something sink in, to regain composure, to be able to go, okay, so what next? So what does that mean? To be able to ask useful questions in that moment, rather than feeling like, oh wow, I was rushed through that, I'm so angry and frustrated, and I'm walking away with all that anger and frustration and resentment and any other feelings that are natural are going to come up. Acknowledge the difficulty of the news. It's difficult news. There's no getting away from that, whether it's, like I said, whether it's a performance issue or it's, the other end of the spectrum is we have to let you go. Acknowledging that it's rubbish information, rubbish news. It's a rubbish turn of events. It's not what we wanted. None of us wanted to be in this space. We've had to make some tough calls. This is the way that we see that we can keep going and continue with our work, either as a team or as an organization. Whatever that difficult news is, be really clear that, it is. This is difficult. But don't make it about you having to deliver that difficult news. This is about them. It's about their experience of it and the impact that that's going to have on them. Be kind to them and to yourself. It's a tough space. It can be traumatic. These memories can sit in a really uncomfortable space, and our brains are very good at pushing away, pain or difficult things, but they really don't go away, and they'll surface in many different guises through an event or being in a place that just reminds us of it. So just recognize that how we deliver this news, how we handle ourselves, how we make space for the other person, how we carry them and hold that space compassionately, gently, is also a good reflection on ourselves. It's a way that we can be kind to ourselves, our future selves, and kind to the individual that we're delivering that news to. And then after the conversation, check in. it's easy to go, oof, done, I've had that. That was really hard. I'm glad I got that out of the way. It's done. And not make an effort to reconnect with that person a day later, a week later, a month later. Check in. It's worth it. It shows your concern. There may have been something unspoken or unsaid that there's an opportunity to, it creates an opportunity to repair the relationship with the sort of pain of the immediacy of the bad news having dissipated a little bit. I can now actually reconnect with you and have a conversation, and maybe speak some truths that I couldn't do then. I couldn't find the words to do at the time. If you're having those difficult conversations, be kind to yourself, think about the other individual, keep them at the center of this, because ultimately this is a conversation that impacts them the most. And it's worth, and out of courtesy, out of respect, out of integrity, it's worth preparing for those conversations and making them the best that they can possibly be, for all involved. And these are spaces that, we, as managers of people, have to be able to take. It's the rough with the smooth, right? There are good times and there are not so great times, but we can do something about the way we hold people through that process. If you are wanting or are interested in this space, if what I've shared with you today has kind of piqued your interest to say, I hadn't thought about conversations in that way, or my role as a leader in that way, or I really want to get good at holding spaces for people in a way that is motivating or is empowering of them, or can be sensitive to a difficult situation. And so I'm not putting off having a really important conversation with someone, then you might be interested in our course, Leaders Who Coach. It's specifically designed so that you are, from day one, you are learning skills of executive coaches that you can apply. You're at the coalface, you are in meeting after meeting after meeting. These are skills that will help you from moment to moment in your interactions, in your relationships. So if that's something that's of interest to you, to learn more about, to get better at, to feel more confident in, to really be able to step into spaces with a clarity about your role and what you want to get out of it, then I really encourage you to consider Leaders Who Coach as our contribution to some of the difficult conversations that are happening at the moment. We have made available 2 places on our upcoming cohort of Leaders Who Coach, one for a manager level and one for a leader level. And all you have to do is, we'll put the link details in the description and comments below, is to apply. There's an online form to apply. You just need to meet a certain criteria that we've applied, that we've put in place for these free spots. Each spot is worth just under £4,000. And this is if you are a leader who has lost, a leader or a manager who has lost a job in the last 6 months. You are welcome to apply for a spot. You need to apply by the 23rd, 5 p.m. UK time, 23rd of January. So you've got the next few days and the weekend to think about whether this is something for you, whether you'd like to do it. Go and check out the course, read the testimonials if those are things that you feel would be valuable. More details will be in the description and comments below, so you can follow up on that. And I can tell you that folks, leaders who have been seeking either a promotion or a new role, who have enrolled on the course, secure those opportunities. The majority of them secure them within months of graduating, sometimes while they're still on the course. I hope that's been helpful to you today. If you are having those conversations with leaders, or you are at the receiving end of some bad news, I hope that you find value in that, and how you would like the conversation to go. Feel free to kind of advocate for yourself and say, this is really tough. Can we keep this conversation short, and can we come back to it? I just need some time to digest it. You are absolutely within your right to ask for that. Fantastic. Thanks for joining me. I will see you next week.